So this talk will be very quick, and it's something I've been working literally my whole 20 years with. And it's trying to find new mechanisms to fund local communities. And I will start the talk with what is GainForest. And for us, it's a better way to do donations. I will also introduce two new ways. So this is one talk and you're getting 3 extra things out of it, which is measure to earn, a new way we believe you can fund communities at scale, and label to earn, even newer way, even more scalable. So get excited. But first, let's talk about, or let's listen about what we're here for today. And this one, I hope you can hear this. Probably not. So I want you to quickly just take a moment, because FtC has been crazy, has been amazing. But just to take a moment, close your eyes and listen to the sounds of nature and imagine nature for yourself. Some of you might see ocean, water, mountains, depending on where you're from, forests, right? And it's really interesting for me as someone who goes around the world to try to protect nature, because the answer, what you're seeing, depends very much on the culture you're from. When you're asking, for example, local communities, they often say they see themselves in people. And for me personally, that was one of the first amazing insights that perspective matters on what nature is for us. Nature, it's not surprising that you felt really calm and meditative, because we all, as human species, evolved with nature. We came down from the trees many, many millions of years ago. And it has this really wonderful effect on us that is not just storing carbon, not just purifying water, but it has so many wonderful things. It's cultural, so you felt educated, you get recreated. And these are the services we oftentimes forget when we talk about nature communities, because we often just focus on the storing the carbon thing because of climate. But just to broaden the perspective, nature is so much more, and it's really, really important to remind ourselves of that. Unfortunately, nature is also one of the biggest contributors of the climate crisis. Not nature specifically, but we humans and our way of interacting with nature currently. Like before the Industrial Revolution, we had 6 trillion trees. Now we lost half of them. And the problem with trees is, as they are wonderful carbon storage units, the moment you burn a tree, all the hundreds of years of carbon stored in the bark is getting released in an instant. And if deforestation would be actually an emitter, a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter, right after the US and China. So it's 18.3%. According to modern estimations, that deforestation alone emits CO2 into the atmosphere. And the people who can prevent us from cutting down forests, the people who also cut forests because of negative incentives, are the people at the front lines who are depending on nature. And it's our path as a community to figure out ways how we can fund these public commons, these public goods, which is the natural world itself, by funding these communities that are at the front lines, that oftentimes have never even heard about Web3 and have not had the luxury of attending FtC, for example. And at GainForest, we are a nonprofit that has been working since 2017. We were started at the UN COP at a hackathon many, many years ago. And we have expanded to really emphasize our focus on supporting these communities. If you go to maps.gainforest.app, you can see currently which communities we are active with, which we are helping and championing with. And we are more like a meta NGO where we develop technologies to empower local communities on the ground. For example, we work with the Ecological Society in Bhutan, we work with the communities in the Philippines with many youth climate warriors, and we work with the youth climate in Kenya. But let's talk about the problem we are here facing, which is a misaligned incentive of how we're funding the commons. And we believe one of the things, the most traditional thing how you fund currently nature, how you fund commons, is through donations. And we believe this system needs a crucial update. And the problem is the following thing. If you donate, you usually give money to a project you believe in. Maybe your grandma told you about WWF, so you're sending some money there. And the money goes there without an understanding of what impact there is, right? So there's a lot of trust that this project you're giving money to delivers in its impact, but there's not a lot of transparency that they do so. And that creates huge, I would say, SBF moments of climate funding that has been striking our society. First, here there's the fake baselines on carbon credits that the Guardian article, for example, revealed that 90% of the carbon offsets that have been sold to big major companies actually are wrong. Like our estimations internally using our algorithms think it's more like between 70 to 80%, but it's huge. So that is about missing wrong impact, right? But there's even a worse thing people not really know about, and that is what happens if there's missing transparency. This one is the Carrier project, the world's largest carbon offset project, run by a company called South Pole in Switzerland. And it has gained $100 million in revenue on carbon credit sales. But if you follow the money, which the Follow the Money team did very impressively in their article, $100 million, $40 million went to the broker, and the rest, $57 million if you want to be exact, went to the project developer, where the project developer promised $30 million to communities. But when we looked through all the articles and all the documents that were on Vera, only $80,000 were documented. And apparently the project developer, CGI, is not willing or not able to prove the use of the funds for its intended purposes. I'll just leave it here. So that is what happens if there's no transparency. And I believe this is going to be probably like the last dagger step to our carbon-based offset market, I believe. So how can we do things better? And that has been the mission of GainForest, to innovate this. And we believe, and we just invented a super simple trick that every little child can come up with this. Basically, instead of giving a donation straight to the conservation project, we put it into a web3 escrow account. And then we use kind of our tools that we had back then. We had used satellite analysis to measure if the trees are still standing. That triggers and measures the impact that we can do automatically. That triggers the escrow account, and the escrow account triggers the donation. And now what you see is that the causality between donation and impact is shifted around. We have a causal connection between impact and donation. So less trust, more transparency. And we do all the things we're good in Web3, of course. We try to assetize this project. For example, we create NF3s that are digital twins of your donation. And that is, for example, an NF3 that we minted in Paraguay, where we also have a conservation project. But we really cannot measure everything. Because if you look at the satellites, for example, this is, for example, if you've never seen satellite imagery, they come in different kind of resolutions and flavors. But you cannot see a tree, for example. And we did a scientific study where we measured every single tree on the ground in Ecuador on 6 sites, then compared it with public satellite analysis, and we found out, ta-da, these satellite images are wrong. And even worse, listen to this now. This is also a forest. Notice how there's no sign of life. No birds. No tranquility. And this forest is actually next to the forest you just heard initially. And the reason this forest has no life is because this is this forest. It's a monoculture where the trees were mostly planted just for the sake of storing carbon. So that's what's happening if you just have one metric and you optimize one metric, you lose everything else of that big circle that I showed you initially. We can't value what we can't measure. And currently, we believe we are failing to capture nature's contributions. And that causes us a lot of problems. Introducing measure to earn. So we believe these satellite imagery are sufficient, but not enough. So they're good, but we can go better. And one of the ways we believe which it can go better is to actually integrate local communities into that process of releasing donations. So we did several pilot studies in the Philippines, in Surigao and Pangas. And we educated local community members to take advantage to measure the things we couldn't measure before, biodiversity, the wealth of life. They went out in the field. They collected the data on their smartphone. They uploaded the data to our servers. And of course, thank you, Cello, we used Valora to trigger out the donations. And Angelo, who is here, was our off-ramp that helped us off-ramp straight without Fiat Connect. So yeah, that was really a big success. Thank you, Cello, for helping us do this. And all the transactions are now transparently visible. And you can also see every single tree. So impact and transparency, something that can only the Web3 community do. We tested this out and scaled it in Colombia, in Kenya, where our off-ramping solutions worked as well, where we also extended the data collection not just on measuring trees, but flying like high-resolution drone imagery, some fancy AI that can prove that if you have satellite imagery and drone imagery, there's some kind of AI algorithm that can guarantee that these drone images are not faked from a location. And yeah, so measure to earn. And we paid every single person who basically measured something, the moment it triggers the contract, a fixed amount of money. So in the Philippines, it was 66 cents per tree measurement. And now we believe there's this new thing due to the increase of the need of label and understanding of data, which we call label to earn, which is how can we move from not just data collection, but actually decentralizing data labeling and including indigenous knowledge and reward people for that indigenous knowledge. So now, instead of measuring the tree, what about if you label ecological data? And could you earn an income with that? And we believe yes. So, and this is the last thing I'm going to show you. I think this is super exciting because it's the frontier of science, what we can do. So biodiversity is super hard to measure. And our team has competed together with Simplex DNA, which is another wonderful region company, on the X Prize Rainforest, which is a 5-year competition, $10 million. And the task of the X Prize Rainforest that happened last month was you have 100 hectares of forest in Singapore. You're not allowed to enter that forest, but you have to measure within 24 hours as many species as possible. And so what we did is we flew drones and we dropped like some DNA samplers in it, as you can see on the right, and then also some water filtration and collected the DNA there. But we also collected a lot of images. And then what we did is we developed a technology that's called social data labeling, where we're using guided large language models to capture inputs from local community members. Here are 3 Malay experts that are discussing our findings, our data collections. And for example, on the top, they just detected a really rare freshwater species that was observation 212. And on the bottom, they were discussing if this freshwater species actually, does this mean that back then this was a rubber plantation, right? All this information now, we can use tooling to capture that, to incorporate that, and label data with that was not possible before. So it's much more context-rich. And in the end, we scaled that campaign up. So we had hundreds of participants around the world. And for each label you submitted, we paid out $1. And thank you, Filecoin, for sponsoring that. Label to earn is a way we believe which can scale because of the need for data for the AI revolution that we're seeing right now. So with the data, for example, we built something that we call data commons. So now, the moment you label data in trees, right, these are, for example, the results that we were able to train using the community labels. For example, what species that tree is, just based on the drone imagery. And this is just collected from the communities alone, from the Global South, through their work of measure to earn and label to earn. And that has impacts not just on the Global South, but all around the world. This is a tree map from the canton of Zurich, Switzerland, that we were able to implement and execute with the algorithm we trained within 24 hours. And now the city of Zurich is interested in paying. And if we can harness these resources, these development algorithms, and channel back the money into the communities, we believe this is super big. Yeah, so we use the algorithm to detect, for example, some trees that the city of Zurich wasn't able to map, but our algorithm, trained through community data, is able to do so. And last but not least, I really want to show you how this looked like on the ground. So this is a small video of the X Prize competition that my team and I were participating in together with Simplex DNA and the team of ETH Zurich, Switzerland. And please take care of the music. This is the coolest thing ever, honestly. This is the coolest thing ever. So So when we use the DNA measurement, oftentimes when you measure the DNA, you can't map it with any species we know yet. And we don't know why this is. Maybe the DNA measurement was wrong, or maybe the species doesn't exist. So in order to make the species more memorable for humanity, artists translates the DNA sequence into music. And we have 3 different kind of species that are the background sound of this video. If you can listen hardly, maybe you can guess what it is. But it's a snail, it's a bee, and it's a small ant. Yeah. So this is the snail. Exactly, and so this is how we use the technology on the ground. And yeah, I'll end the talk here. I want to say there's huge potential in thinking about outside the box with these new mechanisms. Finally, we can, at the frontier of what we can measure, and if we can measure, we can also value it. And let's make sure that this is properly valued so we can preserve nature for everyone. Thank you so much.